Welcome to the Deacs.AI podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. I'm Michael Ferrari.
I'm Ryan Scholl.
Please join us as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time. Hello, and if you're listening to this close to release, Happy New Year. This special edition of the Deacs.AI podcast is a bit of a recap that we put together featuring some of our favorite and notable discussions that we had throughout what was a pretty fascinating 2025. We had a lot of great and interesting conversations with a variety of people with all different types of backgrounds and experiences and viewpoints. We hope that you enjoy this recap. This is just a tip of the iceberg in terms of some of our favorite content from Deacs.AI throughout 2025. Without further ado, let's get into this.
You're going to be even more famous after this.
Wait, why?
Because we have like 12 listeners.
Oh, man. Careful what you say on this podcast.
In this first segment, some of our guests give us practical advice on how to get started using generative AI. We go to Amy Slack, Elizabeth Ricks, Mark Anderson, Kevin Frazier, John Montana, and Kim Cruey for their wisdom on how to begin your AI journey.
Just talk to it.
Yeah,
Pretend it's a person. Like, just go talk to it. Go ask it the question that you would have asked me. That's what I tell people. Like, if you don't know how to do that thing, go ask it and see what it says. Start with Google Gemini. Go to gemini.google.com. Ask it whatever's on your brain. Just see what it says. Click around. Give it a try. I think that this is the easiest tool that you can start using overnight compared to any other technology that anybody's ever learned. And that blows my mind as somebody who helps people learn and keep talking. Like, it's discourse, it's natural language, which sort of, I think in a technology world, I don't think people are used to that. I think they're used to learning how to talk to Google or how to use that system. And Gen AI is not like that. It's you just literally go talk to it. And I get there's techniques and there's prompt engineering and all that jazz. And yeah, sure, you can get better at it and there's some tips and tricks, but I think at least when you're first starting, just go try it. Go ask it what you would have normally asked another human being in that same language. And I think it'll blow your mind from the get-go.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice. And that's the best way to learn what it can do is use it to do something that you don't want to do. Because then you'll really be blown away by what it can do. Right. So whether that's, writing an email or meal planning, I think everybody's using it for meal planning now, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
I have it write scavenger hunts for my kids, which is kind of fun. Right.
Yeah,
there's so many cool, and we're just talking about, chat bots. I mean, there's a whole other world of AI that we're not even discussing.
I have peanut butter and pickles and whatever in my pantry. How do I make dinner out of this or whatever. There's fun and practical that could be mixed together there as you kind of get going. So I think that's a great place to start. And then I think probably the smartest place to think about is, what do I do repetitively in my job or at home or whatever, how can I think about AI in that space, because a lot of things that you do repetitively, there may be ways to improve that by partnering with AI, and at least, like you said, Ryan, being more efficient.
My big piece of advice is play with it. Like, figure out what it says to you, put yourself in conversation and context with it, and listen to that. Feel your way through that. Like, you're not going to just open up ChatGPT and suddenly become a believer. That was not you said it pretty much right. Like, I have I'm leaving my apologist era and entering my evangelist era. Like, I really do think that this is a powerful and incredible thing.
But they always talk about the first 10 hours.
Yeah.
Like, just open up something, right? And here at Wake Forest, we're fortunate because so obviously you can subscribe to ChatGPT and Claude and you can get some free access, but here at Wake, we've got access to Google's Gemini, which has had a big week.
Yeah.
Just had a big week. Although, I say that they all, and how many weeks do we say that they don't? So,
Let's just go day by day.
Day by day, right? We do have access to that as well. And so you get in and start poking around. Start with one of the big frontier models and and have a dialogue. Just what's a question you're interested in?
But until we went to AI Fest last December, like that was such like a pivot point for us to really think about what are all the things that AI could do for us. And I think you did a presentation maybe with Sarah on Notebook LM. But in that presentation, it really started me thinking about how could we use this to make information more accessible to the community.
All right, that seems like pretty good advice. Low stakes entry points can remove often scary technology barriers. Anyone can jump right in and start accelerating their abilities immediately. With OpenAI and Google claiming well over 10% of the world's population as active users, ubiquitous access to information is being democratized. As Kevin Frazier, Betsy Barry, Mark Anderson, John Montana, and Denise Lewis educate us in this next segment, learning how to interact with these AI tools will lead us on the path to AI fluency.
Don't even use it for high stakes things, right? Like my first ChatGPT generations were all pretty superficial. And it's like, but it was just so that I could build literacy.
To faculty, I would say, I think the most important advice is play, and not play is not the right word, but really engage with these tools. So I think that point about Michael's, he said the dumbest thing he'd ever said, but it's not, is that the more you use it, the more you will see how stupid it is, but also how good it is. And so that's why that advice is relevant to every faculty member. So if you're a faculty member who loves AI, like pay attention to all the ways it fails. If you're a faculty member who's like, this is stupid, engage it more because you're going to have some moments where it'll take your breath away. And if it hasn't, just keep using it. And I can come and talk to you about how I use it. And maybe there'll be ways you'll see that.
I think is if you're not experimenting or understanding, you're essentially going backwards because the people around you are, and this is a reality. It's like the internet, it's like the smartphone, it's those kinds of things where it is changing our world already. It will continue to do so, and if you're not at least trying to understand even the fun things, like even if you're just doing some of the fun things right now that you see out there, and like you're at least understanding, like if you were trying to do the cartoon version of yourself or something like that, but to do that right, like you have to understand prompting, right? And when you first do it and you get a really weird crappy looking action figure, then you're like, oh, what went wrong? And then you have to get in and you have to understand, oh, I have to talk to this differently and I have to describe that and I have to do whatever. So even in that case, you're at least learning how these systems work, and you're expanding your own knowledge of how to do it. And hopefully then that can translate to something a little more serious.
So we're in the first inning and we have to appreciate that for what it is. And it's like, back to kind of where we were at the beginning, just get started, right? If you're trying to build your understanding, literacy, or fluency around the topic, and just read a little bit, get around on one of the frontier models and start learning. But with respect to where we are today and where we really need to get to, we have to appreciate that like, it's okay that we don't have it all figured out just yet, but we need to continue to attack each day with some urgency so we don't slow down, right? And so, it's very early in this process, very much early in this process, and we have to appreciate that. We're just in that first inning, but we can't also not be thinking about, well, what do we need to be doing so that when we get to 7, 8, 9, we're ready to actually have be ready to close that game out.
So when we're able to teach students, these are the tools that you use for these purposes. Like you don't try to force, a square peg in a round hole. Don't try to force a chatbot to be something that it's not. So I really try to steer students to use generative AI and chatbots for ideation, for that brainstorming, or for get those, initial thoughts from, just a gobbledygook of, different pieces to an actual form,
The real magic happens when you can apply your AI fluency to your productivity. To show us how that looks in practice, we are joined again by Allison Belton, Mark Anderson, Kim Cruey, Philip Howard, Greg Collins, Elizabeth Ellis, Juan Hernandez, and Tom Brister. They will explore AI as an efficiency engine.
I think they say an industry average is like 15 minutes to review and respond for a human to do it. And just think about how much time we can save and put that person on a more value added activity, more analysis of our data or reviewing things in a different manner, like leveling up some of our employees, and they're not having to take that 15 minutes on those simple questions that an AI chatbot can answer in 2 seconds.
And in the writing space, I think I was thinking the other day about AI really like with a baseball metaphor with, pitchers in baseball. So you've got starting pitchers in baseball. Well, AI, if you don't know what to do at all, AI can get your writing started with, I don't know, here's what I'm supposed to work on. Give me some ideas of where I could go with this, right? So you could use AI to get going. Or, hey, you know how to get going. You've got the bullets. You kind of know what you need to do. Then you need the middle relief pitcher, right? You need AI to come in and be like, I don't know, clean up these bullets and like help me organize my ideas a little better or whatever. Or, hey, you got both of those things and you're good to go. And then you can use AI as the closer, right? Show me where my gaps are in this writing, or help me improve this or change the tone slightly.
Another area that we're using or considering using agents in is a big piece for finance, and that's account reconciliations. We have hundreds and hundreds of accounts that make up our financial statements and kind of the reporting. And there are hundreds of thousands of transactions that are going through all these accounts. And so how can we use agents to kind of go in and look at the data that's coming in from a variety of integrations through third-party suppliers, and match that data for us so that we aren't having to do 3-line long VLOOKUP formulas and all these things in Excel that I can't do, but Allison and Nathan tell me that they're really helpful. But can we get out of the space of having to have that kind of technical knowledge and just these things are just kind of done behind the scenes? Then we're spending our time looking at the anomalies and not the volume. So that's, to me, that's where an agent is really going to be impactful in our space.
Something that's, I think, less trivial that I liked is now what I can do is, again, think about these LLMs as the glue between your programs. So I can ask it in natural language, download the grades for the most recent assignment, for example, identify students who struggled, and then I can automate an email and email those particular students to remind them, hey, my office hours is tomorrow from 9 to 11. Come in if you want to talk about these concepts. I see that you struggled a little bit on this homework assignment. Again, it's something that you could do, but now it kind of removes this friction and lets it be a little bit more easy for you.
Well, when I think about agents in P2P, I think about, if a supplier is asking, where is my payment? Or if the department wants to know, has this payment been made? Having our folks, not have to actually touch it. The agent can go into the system, can find the payment status, can look at that particular vendor, bring that data back.
And we never have to touch it.
Write the email using the toenails and just kind of describe, this is how we want to communicate with our community. And we don't have to touch it. It can just go, straight out the door. We can make that decision. Yes, we review it, or no, we've seen it, 20 times and we feel comfortable with it. And all of those inquiries are just gone from our plate.
I use the AI companion in Zoom a lot. Whether I like it or not, most of my days are filled with meetings. I'm constantly in meetings with vendors or people on campus or other teams on IS to make sure our teams are on the same page or working on projects. And anytime I'm the host of a meeting, I have AI companion summary turned on, and that is super helpful. It has allowed me to be more present in meetings because I've actually stopped taking meeting notes. Like if it's a task I know that is specific to me, I'll put in my task app. But from taking team meeting notes or meetings with a vendor or anything, I've stopped taking notes because the summary is so, we've all had good laughs about some of the stuff that it will spit out or the small little nuggets that it picks up on. So it's fun to read through it because you usually get a good laugh. But the way it lays out the next step, it kind of picks up on tasks that different people need to do. And then just the summary, it's there. if I need to go back to it. And a lot of times what I've done is I'll copy and paste that into the team notes document. And that's my notes for the meeting. So that's been very helpful.
We have, I think it's over 70 policies and procedures that make up the bedrock of the financial organization and responsibilities of Wake Forest, because they're like 25 pages a piece.
Riveting.
So it's great. Those of us who write it are very passionate. But it is, we tease, but it's a lot of information, and they're interconnected in many ways. And so we may send people to one policy to, read about a reimbursement or a donation or whatever it is that they're trying to do, but it's tied to 2 or 3 other policies that also impact the transaction they're trying to complete. And to expect a community member to understand all the places they need to look is not practical. And so we end up having to do a lot of education and whatnot on the back end. So Notebook LM has been a great way for us to put all the finance policies and procedures kind of in one place and let the community ask it questions kind of just in everyday plain language. It's not, you don't have to be a lawyer or a finance professional to be able to understand the responses you're getting.
Hey, AI, I'm totally stuck on this thing. Like, give me some ideas, and then hopefully that starts to sprout, other thoughts of what you could use it for. And then, you've probably mentioned it on other podcasts, but we do have great people across campus here who love AI and can help you get down the road on like, oh, now that I'm in here, how do I get better? How do I learn?
So yeah, I haven't quite ventured into using it in my personal life, but obviously I do use it at work because if I want to tell students about the tools, then I need to at least kind of understand, how to use them myself or what they are capable of. And so, yeah, similar to Amanda and maybe Denise too, sometimes I do get some assistance with assignments. So, if there's an assignment that I've been using for a while that, I maybe want to take a new perspective on or incorporate a new framework. I will sometimes, say, here's what I'm already using. Here's a new framework that I want to explore or a new, activity that I want to bring into this. And so I'll get it to kind of help incorporate new elements into the assignment without making it like really clunky and wordy. And then, I have this like 10 pages of instructions for an assignment that's going to take students like an hour. So it has been really great for that.
It's common to reuse your content from semester to semester. So what I taught in the spring, I have another course in the fall. The problem is that if you have assignment dates, those dates in the spring need to be updated for the fall, and the calendars aren't exactly in sync. So where spring break falls in the spring is different than where fall break falls in the fall. It sounds very trivial, but if you think about it from the teacher's standpoint, you have to manually go in there and update all the dates and adjust it for the correct timing. And it can take you 30 minutes for a course, and it's just 30 minutes that you lost. 30 minutes across every professor, across every semester, that adds up to quite a bit. And so what I asked Claude to do is just go to Canvas's website, learn how to use the API, connect to it. And I said, here's the website for the updated School of Business calendar for the fall. Here's my spring course. I want you to update the dates for the assignments chronologically, but update it to match the fall calendar. So it just went in there using the API that it learned, and it changed each date correctly. And so again, that's something. It sounds a little trivial because it's something that you can do on your own, but it's just a friction that you don't have to do anymore. You can automate it away. And if everyone's doing this, everyone's a little bit more efficient, has a little bit more time on their hands.
So the idea is to take AI and create a mode, and so we can leverage all those insights, all that great knowledge that we have about the consumers, the U.S. consumers. So we created a marketing assistant that allows you to ask questions like, what type of consumers can care about this product? Who should I target for that product? How should I sell it? What are the main benefits? So instead of hallucinating the most, that's kind of what you would get with a regular GPT or regular Gen AI tool. We ground the answers based on all the knowledge that we have from the consumer insights.
But it's really neat because you can think about these LLMs now as like the glue between all the different applications on your computer. And there's no reason why you have to be an expert in every application. You can say, pull this data from these CSV raw files that I downloaded online, do the analysis in Python, take the analysis, maybe Stata's better at cross-sectional regressions, put that data in Stata for further analysis, make some visuals, put that in PowerPoint, and give me a presentation. And it can connect the dots between each of these.
I realize that it so increases productivity in certain types of tasks that if a person doesn't adapt it, they're simply not going to be able to compete with someone who does. It's just not going to happen. So that's reality. Secondly, I realized that they're all using it because, as we all know, like the kids use things faster, adapt faster. And so they're already using it and they're good at it and they know how to do these things. And so if they're already using it anyway, it's going to be around forever. We need to find a way to adapt it to the academic world in some way, because it's not fair to them for them not to get certain ways of learning how to use it.
Mr. King, he worked at Black & Decker, and he brought to market, or he was the leader of the project that brought the DOS poster into market, and that's the most successful pro launch in Black & Decker, and some people argue that it's ever in the U.S. market because that allowed them to grow and buy DeWalt and a bunch of stuff, and until they went sideways. But anyway, that process took them 3 years back in the day. A lot of research, talking to people, creating prototypes. And so one thing I do in my class is going through that process in 20 minutes using AI tools.
Wow.
Because you can go to ChatGPT and, what examples we give in like 3 categories, like a lawnmower, a vacuum, we let them ask questions about. So the whole thing is, okay, go learn about consumer trends in those categories. Based on that, pick one that you think is unmet. Then you can ask these models how this kind of product can solve that need. And then, you can go to Claude or Gemini and ask to create a video for the prototype or create a website. So you can create a whole thing in 20 minutes or so. So that's how kind of I bring the point of this is how things change from, 40 years ago to now. You can go from something that took 3 years, and of course it's not apples to apples, right? They were building prototypes and stuff like that. You will get images and press releases and stuff like you actually having built a thing. But again, that's a lot of the work they did. Again, it took them 3 years, and now we can do it in 20 minutes.
We've seen how AI can remove the friction from our daily workflows. But we are quickly moving towards a future where AI does more than just follow a prompt. It acts on our behalf. In this next section, Tim Snyder and Philip Howard introduce us to the agentic future. They'll explain the power of autonomous agents.
All of the science out there suggests that a human being is capable of effectively managing about 120 relationships. The VEO can manage 1,000, right? So you're close to a scale of a factor of 10 there.
And so the benefit with agentic coding is that basically you have this for loop where the LLM can do a task on your behalf. It can get immediate feedback from the program, from executing the code to see if it did it correctly or not. And if it did it incorrectly, it can iterate. If you think about a task that's you only get it correctly 50% of the time and incorrect the other 50% of the time, assuming each iteration is independent, it only takes you 8 iterations before you're at a 99% success rate, right? If iteration 1 is incorrect, then I try iteration 2, I'm at a 75% success rate, etc. So when you think about having this for loop, removing the human from the loop, so you don't actually have to debug it. That's the big innovation here. If I go to chatgpt.com and I ask it to code something for me, the code may be 80% correct and I have to spend some time debugging the remaining 20%. That's kind of traditionally where we lived. But now, because these models are running on your computer, it can execute the code, it can see the error in real time, and it can iterate without you actually having to intervene. And for it to do this process is really quick, right? It takes less than a second for it to see the error, apply a patch, and then iterate again.
The idea of autonomous AI agents is a massive leap in productivity. However, as we delegate more tasks to these digital teammates, we have to be careful not to lose the very thing that makes our work meaningful. Next, Sarah Parsons, Tim Snyder, Elizabeth Ellis, and Shannon McKean explore the intersection of work and the human connection. They discuss the human values that AI cannot replicate, like ethics, trust, and the deep institutional knowledge that comes from talking with a colleague.
But I know we're just talking about computer science now. So yes, I think working on real world projects where there has to be the human element, right? So it's not just I'm writing code, it built this application, it serves this population, and it does this. It's not just that anymore. We have to incorporate more of, well, how can the human be a part of this and their artistic abilities, right? And their ethical queries and all that they can add to the AI, what the AI is generating. And I think it's really hard for us to say, oh yeah, next semester my class is going to do all this. We're in this evolution phase, and I think this is going to be the case for years, because it's so hard to just turn and transition so quickly into this more immersive simulation type experience that I think would be best for students, because that's how it's going to be in the real world from now on, right? I think using AI as a partner is fantastic. I think it will. I can't say always. I can't say things like never or always, but I hope that we will always remember, no matter how powerful these tools become, that we will always remember there has to be the human element involved, because the trust, the ethics, the just being able to understand what it's doing, being able to debug it is so important. I would say almost more important than being able to write it from scratch. And my fear is that we land at a place where a lot of people see CS as like, oh yeah, it's just coding. We can just give it to AI. They'll do it all for us. And let's do away with this, maybe, this field of computer science. And that I cannot, it really irks me.
So because we are thinking of the virtual engagement officer as a member of our team, we began to train the virtual engagement officer in the same way that we would train a new gift officer, right? We sent her sent the company, the Avatar, printed materials or digital materials that explain how we go about development. We have a weekly newsletter that we call News You Can Use that we send out to all of our frontline officers that are essentially talking points. Here's what's going on in the life of the university right now. So you may have seen in today's Winston-Salem Journal a message about the naming of Bradford Marcellus as the Maya Angelou Artist in Residence. Jessica has been sending out messages to her portfolio about that announcement. So
did somebody ask her to do that? Or
that's what's really cool about this, Ryan. That happens unprompted, right? The artificial intelligence, the AI agent itself, is parsing through all this information and deciding what to send and to whom, right? One of the hardest parts about this experiment has been to let go and let the artificial intelligence operate independently. How we learn to go from assigning tasks to simply suggesting topics. That was really hard to do.
I have the students because they work on teams, and you may be familiar with the concept of a team charter, and that's where kind of a team sits down. And so this idea of a team charter is that, no offense to the students, but they're 21, 22 years old. They don't have a lot of pre-experience, and so it's hard for them to imagine what problems might arise. Mm-hmm. And so the team charters that were submitted 5 years ago were fairly superficial and fairly generic. And they didn't necessarily think through. And I would often try to give them scenarios to think through that. Today, I've got a whole library of scenarios. What do you do about this? What do you do about that? And I actually toyed with a GPT. So what this GPT tries to do is it prompts each member of the team to answer some questions in front of their teammates, and then it asks the teammates to respond with what they think might be some issues based on what each have said. And then,
so it's adaptive.
Yes, it's adaptive. And then
fantastic.
At the end, it asks them to identify what they think the problems might be, or where the pain points might be, or the friction points might be for the team. It also is able to go into, we do a tool called Strengths Finder, and everyone shares their strengths, and based on the generative large language model, it hypothesizes where two strengths might cause conflict and where two strengths might cause synergy, and how to go about doing that. And so it hopefully, for the ones that use it well, creates a deeper exchange within the team so they can ultimately write a more thorough, more realistic team charter. So you may know this, but I'm a big believer in experiential learning. And I think one of the things, the challenges of experiential learning is that it's very resource intensive. And so in a perfect world, each team would have an advisor to work with them, kind of coach them through the process. The resources for that, and not in any way to suggest that a GPT can replace an advisor, but it can enhance the process and give them some skills they may not have. So the expectations for team charter have gone up significantly.
It's like, what are the human values added, right, to a workplace or to a classroom that cannot be done at this point by ChatGPT, or by generative AI? And I think for me, that's an essential part of instruction on generative AI, is like just emphasizing human elements that hopefully are not going away anytime soon. That are also really important skills in the workplace. We know at this point, and some of the biggest criticism that millennials and Gen Z get from employers is that they try to find all the answers on the internet, right? Rather than like talking to an older colleague who's been there for 30 years, who might have some knowledge that's not on the internet, right?
As we've heard, emphasizing the human element is an essential part of artificial intelligence. This is especially true for students who are preparing to enter a radically new labor market. In our final segment, Andy Chan, Jed McCosco, and Bill Zandy look towards the future of work. They'll discuss how young professionals can navigate the job market by adopting an entrepreneurial mindset, focusing on relationship building and using AI as a tool for abundance rather than a source of fear.
These are things that I know you and I and us as adults, like we probably can do it. Although, as you can imagine, some people are introverted, and so they have a harder time doing that. Some people, a lot of young people are like, I don't want to waste the time with these older people. Like, I don't have anything to say. Like, I'm not ready to sell myself. It's not a sales process, but they don't know all those things. And so you have to find a way to get them to do that. And actually that of anything, of all the things, as much as each one of these things are really hard, that one thing is one of the most important things to actually get around all of these AI type systems. Because what you'll hear from everyone is this: say, if I came and I want to work in Wake Forest IT, and I happen to informational interview with Ryan and Michael, and you actually like me, we had a good conversation, you probably would say to that hiring manager, you should talk to Andy. He seems like a pretty good guy. Like, I don't even know his background practically, but he made the effort to come and talk to us, and we hit it off, and he seemed like he was a really good listener and asked really good questions. That's the key. Like, that's the thing. And that's the one piece that I know college students say, I'm too busy, I can't do it, which, as we know, college students, you can choose your time, you can choose where you want to do it. It's harder the harder thing is that like, well, how do I go and make the connection and talk to people? And so those are the pieces that we thankfully can teach them better. And we do that in our career classes. And that's where, if you make it part of the curriculum, the students do it and they start to realize this isn't as hard as I thought. By the way, 20 other students are doing it too. So we're all doing it together. And now it's like, we can all do this. Like, it becomes almost like a team effort. But that building relationships in this new world is going to be the ultimate key. Because as much as you and I, we can all type a question to AI and think we know what we're doing, but the answer that we would give to each other that leads to the next question, that leads to the next question, there's just something about the in-person interaction that leads you to places that you don't go when you have computer screens in front of you or when you're just talking to your phone.
And then a few students didn't want to do any generative AI unless I absolutely twisted their arm because they had been told as a high school student not to use it. But I mean, we got over that pretty quickly because I have guest speakers who are actually in the finance world, because I'm in the ivory tower, so I don't really know what's going on actually out there. And this guy came in and he, he's a big guy. He started his own company with, 80 employees, 100 employees, and got bought out by Snowflake, which is a huge big data company. And so he runs their AI side. And he was saying, look, you're not going to go to a job and have your boss say, oh, sorry, you used AI and got your job done faster. That's not allowed. You're going to get a boss that says, good job, you got this done faster. And we're really thankful for that. So that helped even the students that were worried just say, okay, we're just going to do it. When we're allowed to do it, we do it.
I deal with students from Wake, from like Purdue and Georgia Tech, mainly. And they're all very concerned. They're all very concerned about the labor market. And for good reason. I mean, the labor market's already pretty weak due to, a bunch of reasons. And now every company is focused on how do they use AI to save on cost. And the roles that are typically being disrupted right now are these kind of lower these roles typically assigned to young people.
So like maybe more entry level type.
More entry level. And there's a lot of debate here. I mean, about what's actually happening in the labor market. How much is AI really kind of affecting the labor market and young people being hired? It's definitely being affected now. So, but to what degree, I'm not sure, and we'll find out over the next 6 to 12 months. But for a young person who's waiting to get hired, I mean, it's definitely, I'm sure, very horribly frustrating, and I see this very pervasively. So what can they do? I mean, my advice is the difference between young people and people who are in companies now who are older, who just don't use the tools. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, young people will be able to learn, what's going on in the company, relatively quickly. If they can use the tools, then they're going to be in a much better position to do that. There's lots of people in companies now that have their heads in the sand, that don't want. They're very intimidated, very afraid. They're also at risk of being displaced. And if young people can come in and have a really good understanding of what these tools can do, how to use them, and how to demonstrate their ability to use them, and that's by creating, what we talked about earlier, creating kind of passion projects, using these tools to solve individual workflow problems, then they're going to be in better shape for sure. I mean, it could play out over a period of time.
12 years ago, when you gave your TED Talk,
Right.
you said the world of work has changed. Can you make that same statement again now?
Wow, that's a great thing that you went back and named. Wow, the world of work had changed at that moment in time. Like, so that was just post the financial meltdown. And I think at that moment, and this again, wow, pre-COVID, pre-use of the tools of Zoom and, remote work and hybrid work and all that kind of stuff, it was at a moment where it felt like if we don't help students really think more entrepreneurially about their work and their lives, navigating the changes that were going to happen were going to be difficult, because the world seemed like it was changing a lot at that moment in time. Very unpredictable. And wow.
With that, right?
You're right. The next 12 years since that time have created even more change and more, for lack of a better word, havoc. And so the need to actually say the same, that the world has not only changed, but it's changing even at a faster rate. The need to equip our students for that change is more important than ever. So I would agree with that.
I mean, definitely, there's no better time to go and create something than right now. And all the tools exist out there for you to experiment very quickly about different products and services. So
like you see a lot of conversations about entrepreneurial thinking, and they all think they want to start companies, but not the majority of them don't. Like, they actually go work somewhere and then maybe later start a company, or they go work for some kind of startup. And I do think that kind of mindset is a great way of thinking, because you can apply that whether you're in a big company or in a small company. You can apply that whether you're the founder or whether you're just, one of the employees. And so I do think that's going to be more important than ever, because you have this feeling that what AI is doing is both creating change and creating opportunity, that you can either have a mindset that, oh, I see this as a world of abundance that I can actually move into and try to find my place, or I can look at it as a world of sort of scarcity and fear where, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have anything. So what do I do? and be frozen in that situation. And I think the more we can help our students know, there's always opportunities to create value. As you said earlier, like, wow, there's always more opportunity that I'm not seeing on the surface, because what you have to do is you have to go under the surface.
Thanks again to our guest, and thanks for listening to the Deacs.AI podcast. Please continue to follow the AI discussion by subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you have any comments, questions, or would like to join the discussion, please email us at Deacs.AI@wfu.edu.